So thanks for having me. This is actually the second time I'm doing one of those meetups. The first one was 2-3 years ago in a very
first one.
So yeah, I was lucky enough to be invited at the very first one. It was 3 years ago in a very small room in Krakow. So it's really exciting to see Innovation Nest growing and going international. Just before we start, very quick introduction. Chris gave a brief intro, but just to kind of give you a bit more background to understand where this is coming from. My name is Dimitar. I'm currently the founder and CEO of a small tech startup called Heresy. We're London-based, been only going for 6 months. Product is coming out in a couple of months, so we're super early stage. We're working on something really interesting and exciting. We're building a workflow application management for salespeople based on Agile principles. So the whole idea is that you approach sales and you run sales and managing sales team the same way engineers would basically approach product, which is pretty radical, but hence the name of the company, Heresy. The overall mission of the company is to make sales more transparent, more collaborative, and make it more fun for the people involved. Before starting Heresy, as Chris said, I was with Stack Overflow, which is a company which I'd like to think most of you know. Just to show of hands, how many of you know Stack Overflow? Less than half of the room. Okay, so just to give you a quick background, Stack Overflow is essentially the largest community of software developer in the world. So it's a question and answer site which programmers visit every single time they have some sort of issue at work, coding, don't know what to do. They basically go to Stack Overflow, ask a question, and now the programmer answers their question. So as Chris said, I was the very first employee in Europe for Stack Overflow. Joined the company back in 2011. And by the time I left earlier this year, I had managed to scale the office to about 80 people, just short of 80 people. The majority of them were in sales, which is what I'm going to talk about today, how we basically went from 0 to about 45 in sales in Europe. And globally, just to give you an idea, Stack Overflow employs around 120 people globally in sales across 3 different offices, New York, Denver, and London. Now, it's interesting I say this because Stack Overflow is perceived as this company which is built by engineers for engineers, but it actually has a very heavy sales machine, which not many people know, and they're doing really, really well. Just before we start, I'd like to give you a very kind of basic framework of how I think about sales, because it's kind of important for the rest of the talk. I broadly tend to think of sales in 2 different dimensions. What I call micro sales, which is the part of sales concerned with single factors and effective individual sales performance, very much what Greg was talking about earlier. How to improve email conversion, how do you become better at cold calling, how do you improve rep efficiency, etc. I do, however, feel there's another part of sales, which is what I refer to macro sales, which is kind of the part of sales concerned with the overall performance of the sales machine, which is something that I think most sales leaders and most salespeople tend to completely overlook. And this is very important when you start thinking about building and scaling a sales organization and growing with sales. The reason why I say this is because I feel very often people tend to really focus on the micro, and this kind of leads to a bunch of unwanted consequences. I'll get back to this, but if you think of the common perception of the salesperson, which is something that I feel popular culture has done a big disservice to. Take movies like Glengarry Glen Ross, which is an old classic, which I'd like to think most of you have seen if you are in sales, or Boiler Room, or The Wolf of Wall Street. These are all movies that kind of depict salespeople as phone monkeys with very low morale that would kind of sell their own matters for cash. And if you think about this, it becomes kind of very obvious that the only way to manage salespeople becomes with a very heavy hand top down. And if you again go back to this idea of managing sales on a very macro level, it creates a lot of problems when it comes to scaling the organization. What I mean by this is the notorious poisonous sales environment. How many people work in sales? I assume everyone here works in sales. No? Jesus, okay. Okay, but if you think of the traditional sales environment, like the ones depicted in Boiler Room, the ones depicted in The Wolf of Wall Street, it's super competitive, very cutthroat, an environment where not many people like being, right? And this is something that has been perpetuated in popular culture, and a lot of people basically tend to build and scale sales team that way, which unfortunately leads to incredible churn in your team. So just to give you an idea, the average turnover rate, staff turnover rate on an inside SaaS sales team, any guesses what that would be?
35.
What was that?
35%.
Yeah, it's 33%. And 1 in 10, which is crazy, right? Was that Greg who shouted it?
Yeah.
Of course. I don't know what you make of this, but that's incredibly high. And you know what's worse is 1 in 10 teams would actually go to as far as 50%. So if you think about what this means in terms of scaling and building a sales organization, if we take the more extreme case, the 50% of your sales team won't be with you at the end of the year, which is absolutely nuts, right? So how do you scale and grow an organization? As I said, Stack Overflow managed to go to around 120 people in you know the space of 4 years. And one of our big secrets has been the fact that we have been very good at retaining staff, because that's kind of what basically gets you to experience this exponential growth. Kind of delay this slide, but the whole idea that I was kind of trying to get to is the sales basically becomes a bit of a blood sport. And it's something which is very unfortunate, but it's something that most sales leaders kind of shrug off and say, you know, it's just sales. It's something that you have to deal with. But the truth is you don't really have to deal with this. And it's something that I say, having experienced this, I basically ended up being in a rather poisonous sales environment back in 2009 in my own startup. So before I joined Stack Overflow, I co-founded another business. And I think we became victims of this popular perception of what sales should be. Completely cocked it up, I think. But I had the chance to work very closely with the engineering team at the time, who had a very different way of operating and thinking, which gave me the idea to basically start borrowing, if you will, concepts and tools from software engineering and plugging them into the sales process in a way to make it more efficient, more social, more shareable. And this is something that I had the opportunity to basically do from day one of Stack Overflow. As I said, I was fortunate enough to be the first person on the ground, so I decided, hey, I'm going to experiment and start introducing a lot of concepts from software development in sales. Basically went from, as I said, from from 1 person in 2011 to about 45 in sales. And this is kind of what our performance looked like. There's a bit of a delay here. So in the 5 years I was there, we basically went from 0 to hero, more or less. Just one thing to stay, Stack Overflow is not a SaaS business, at least not at the time I was there. So the way they make their money is through connecting all the engineers who visit the Q&A site to companies who are looking to hire engineers. So it's a very, I don't want to say transactional, but it's something that, you know, if you're looking to hire today, you're not necessarily looking to hire tomorrow because you fill your vacancy. So the amount of companies who can basically sign up for a year-long plan is very limited. So what you're seeing here basically is just monthly bookings. So the idea is that the team basically starts from scratch, which is why you see this troughs every now and then. The business recently, I understand, transitioned to a SaaS model, and now they have a recurring revenue model. So this is going to be way more stable. But this is what we achieved, 130% growth year on year. This is just for my team in Europe. And this is the number that I am mostly proud of. This is the average attrition rate in the sales team for the duration of the 4.5 years, which was less than 1%. Now compare that to the 33% and you see what I'm talking about.
Why is it called 2019 or 2018?
Because I totally fucked something up, but well spotted.
Future.
Yeah, this is wrong. This should be, sorry guys, this should be basically February 2016, because that's when they left. Well spotted. You got me. Time traveler from the future. So what I want to do, because we have a very short period of time, and this presentation normally will take me a solid hour if I race through it, because it encompasses tools, it encompasses best practices, it encompasses management, etc. What I'd like to do, what I thought I would do, is basically try to give you the best of both worlds. So give you a tool which I think could be incredibly efficient on the micro level, and something which basically help us build a foundation on the macro level. So without further ado, that tool was as simple as this. It's a burn down chart. How many of you, so not many had a traditional sales background, how many of you are engineers, out of curiosity? Small number of people, okay. So just to ensure we're all on the same page, this is called a burn down chart. How many of you are familiar with it? About half the room, but I'll cover it nonetheless. The burn down chart, I think, is by far the most efficient project management tool. And at the same time, it's the most simplistic one as well. It only comprises of 2 lines, as you can see. And the idea is that you basically take the amount of work that needs to be done in a certain project, you divide it equally over the duration of the project, and then you see how the project evolves over time. You also have another line, which is the green line here, which tracks how the amount of work would progress in the real world. So you end up with these two lines. One is a straight line, which kind of depicts your journey if the work was distributed evenly through the month, and the other one, which oscillates around the straight line, is how the project is unfolding. It's incredibly straightforward, something that software engineers and my co-founder, Jaime, who you saw a picture of back in 2009, used to use regularly, something which I think is really underused in sales, but something that can add a lot of value, both on individual performance level and as a team, and I will explain how. But just before we move on, very briefly how to read this. In the context of sales, so I've got this sort of theoretical example of a small sales team that needs to do $116,000 in a calendar month, comprised of 20 business days, like February or something short like that, just for simplicity purposes, which means that in the ideal world, they'll be doing 5,800 every single month, right? So if you get their targets in the vertical axis and the 20 days here, you basically have this straight line, which starts with 116, and then the following day they have 5,800 less, and the following day another 5,800 less, etc., 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 until on the last day they've basically hit their goal, right? This is your ideal performance. Now we all know this is not going to happen, right? You have days where, yeah, you might sell like 5,800, but equally you're going to have days where you do zero, it happens, or you're going to have days where you sell less than 5,800, or days where you sell more. And this is what the green line represents, the line that kind of oscillates around the purple line. In either case, both lines are tracking down, so as time progresses, you have less and less work to do, which is why we call this a burn down. And the way you read it is incredibly simple. Every single time the green line is above the purple line, you're falling behind where you should be, and every single time you're below it, you're basically pacing ahead. And now that seems incredibly simple, right? Once you kind of wrap your head around it, it seems incredibly simple and very obvious, but I feel it's something that the traditional model of visualizing sales data totally misses. Compare this, right, to this. Like, this is exactly the same set of data, but in this case, you're basically only being shown the absolute results of the team, what happened, what deals were closed during those 20 days. And here you're seeing the relative results, or what we normally refer to as performance. So not just what happened, but how it happened, which is incredibly important. Just that simple introduction of a baseline kind of enables you to do a lot of really interesting things, which I'll touch on now. The first one is this idea of being able to detect problems with your individual performance if you apply this on an individual level or team level very easily. And I explain what I mean, because it's kind of not very straightforward. As human beings, we always think we're incredibly rational and we make decisions rationally, and they're always the right decisions, etc. But we all know that this is not true, right? If I asked anyone here in the room what the chances were of them, I don't know, experiencing some sort of bad illness, or financial loss, heavy financial loss, or indeed your startup going down the drain, 2 weeks from now, whatever, every single person in the room is going to underestimate the chances of that happening, bar none. Every single person will say that's not going to happen to me, and that's very common. That's something. It's a bias. It's called the optimism bias, which is built within us, and it's something the salespeople are no different. They experience the same thing. So if a salesperson starts slipping behind target, it's very difficult for them to kind of start to appreciating when that is happening, and more importantly, how long it's going to take for them to kind of get the train back on tracks, so to speak. So going back to the hypothetical example of the team I gave earlier, three-person team looking to do 116K a month. In my experience, that team would only start appreciating the gravity of their situation around here, around day 15, when the gap between their ideal performance and their actual performance is so big that they can no longer be blinded by this optimism bias. Unfortunately, at that stage, you can probably not read it from the graph, but at that stage, they have some $79,000 to catch up on and 5 days to do it, which is pretty fucking hard to do, and also it puts a lot of pressure on the team. What you want to be doing is kind of detecting it somewhere around here, so you can basically take the relative actions in order for you to get closer to the line. And this is what, in my experience, the burn down has allowed me to do on the personal level. I started using burn downs to track my own performance some 7-8 years ago. and I have never looked back. So the way I think of it is, it's not that, a burn down kind of is, it's able to detect problems earlier. Basically what it does is helps you to be more honest and kind of recognize when you have a problem in your performance. The other thing which we used very heavily at Stack Overflow was burn downs to basically forecast and incentivize the team. So what is seen here is a slightly more sophisticated burn down. This is something that I've taken from Heresy, my new company. And what you're looking at is a team that needs to do 210, and they're basically beginning to slip. The red projection of the line basically is where they're going to end up the month if they continue working at the same pace. And this is something that, that kind of approach is something that we use very heavily at Stack Overflow to incentivize individuals and to give them a bit of a shake-up or a wake-up call if they start kind of slipping behind targets. Because if you're here, you are probably like at 180, and you've got some 15 days or 18 days to hit your goal. You're like, I'm doing all right. But the reality is that if you carry on working at the same pace, you're going to miss your target by 160K. And that's quite dramatic. So you want to basically be able to show your team that. Alternatively, you can use the same approach to incentivize the team. So, if the team is doing well and their velocity, which is the speed at which they're burning to goal, is kind of higher than the ideal model, we can basically extrapolate and show them where they're going to be. So that's something that we leverage very, very heavily, and it has paid off because every single month the team was within 5% of this range. So we've been incredibly, you'll notice I still say we about Stack Overflow. It's going to take a while to shake it off. But Stack Overflow has been very, very good at hitting targets on a monthly basis. One other thing that we used burn down charts very heavily for was to sort of, to scale the team, but also more importantly, perhaps to diagnose certain problems. So just to give you an idea, each single member of the sales team, which is said by the time I left was around 120 people, had a burn down of their own. And the way the team was structured, and I'm going to talk about this shortly, was you would have basically about 5 to 8 people, and the combined sum of their burn downs will basically give you a burn down for a small team. And in each office, you will have roughly 3 to 6 teams. The combined sum of all the burn downs for the teams will give you the office burn down, and then the 3 offices will basically produce the company burn down. So it's a nice way to sort of pyramid and organize the organization. And this is very, very scalable. But as I said, what is really interesting is that it enables you within seconds to identify certain problems. So for example, if on a company level, there's a bit of a gap between the model and our ideal performance, you can straight away track it down to an office or a couple of offices, and from there on track it down to a team, and then from a team to an individual, and from there on, you can basically look underneath what's happening in terms of not just the burn down, but what is feeding into the burn down. There's basically a Kanban board which captures the person workflow, which unfortunately we don't have time to talk about. But you can basically find the problem within seconds and take care of it within those first 5 days or whatever. How are we doing on time, Chris?
We're good.
We're good, okay. So in terms of team structure, I'll use, I can still not get over this. What is this? Thanks for pointing out, by the way. Is the future. In terms of like team structure, I kind of alluded to what we've done earlier, but just to give you the example from Stack Overflow Europe, which is what we basically replicated in the other 3 offices. We started off with just myself because we didn't really have a business there back in 2011. And for probably 6 months, I was the only person selling, so I actually sold the product myself. And then we went to a very flat structured team where you had me as a team leader still selling, but then I had like 3 people around me. And that lasted for about 9 months. From there on, we moved into the same formation, but we basically started multiplying the teams. So you will have like independent teams where you have 5 to maybe 6, 7 individuals on a team, 1 team leader who basically is a person who's an individual contributor themselves. They're selling. And then for every 2 or 3 teams, you will have a manager who's there just to support the team and ensure that they progress, their personal development basically evolves. and they work on improving their skills, but they have very little impact on how the team runs. The whole team basically operates as an independent unit. And by the time I left the office, we kind of looked like this. So it's a very nice way to kind of scale the organization and transition very easily. There's a whole set of rituals which I wanted to talk about in terms of what do you do with the burn downs, what do you do with the other tools, etc. But because we don't have much time, I just thought I'd close with a very quick historical retrospective, because it may seem a bit sophisticated right now, but at the time it was like super basic. And this is something that I feel everyone can basically start doing right now. When we started in 2011, we used very, very crude tools. Stack Overflow used to use, and I believe they still do, Salesforce as their CRM. So what I would do basically is pull data out of Salesforce and produce burn downs in Excel and basically print like sheets of A4. You can see right there, sheets of A4. About every 5 days. One other thing which I didn't mention is we'll break down the month, the forecasting horizon, into sprints, roughly 5 days, and we'll basically have stand-ups and retrospectives around those 5 days. And we'll use the burn downs basically to kind of talk about it. The Kanban boards were basically, as we see in engineering, posted notes on the board, but the whole idea was that me and my team members could see what the team was working on, so it was very open, very collaborative. From there on, we kind of became a little bit more fancy. It had like plasma screens kind of displaying the same information. And in 2013, because the team in London started outperforming the other two sales offices quite visibly, we decided that we were going to basically build software to scale and replicate the process, because I was already at the point of breaking in a way. My team could scale to about 10 people, and globally the sales team of Stack Overflow was about just south of 30, I would say. So we would say the only way to kind of scale this is to basically build software around it. So we built this, which looking back looks really ugly, but it did do the job. It was basically a plugin for Salesforce. We would pull all the data out, create a Kanban so we can see what people are working on, burn down charts, etc. We're working on this now. This is Heresy, coming out in a couple of months, so stay tuned, heresy.io. Promise that's the only sales pitch I'm doing. But the whole idea is that we're basically doing what we did at Stack Overflow and enabling other organizations to scale the same way. So hopefully this has given you a quick glimpse. Go back. Go back. It's a Kanban board tied up. I'll talk to you later. The whole idea is that we basically want to empower salespeople to become a little bit more efficient in what they do, help them crush targets, forecast accurately, and enable sales team to scale and grow. Anyway, guys, I think this is just about enough. 20 minutes. Did I nail it? It's okay. All right. Any questions at all?
Do you have questions about building sales teams? But before that, yeah, sure, a round of applause.
Thanks.
You guys are great with clapping. Any questions for building sales teams? I cannot believe you don't have any questions. Martin, you look like you have a question.
Yeah, I think these are two very different keynotes. So Greg is more on the sort of automation side.
Yeah.
You're more on the people side.
Yeah.
So do you think this like your approach is better for a certain kind of sales or product types, or can this philosophy be employed to any type of a sales process in terms of software companies?
Yeah, I don't think they're mutually exclusive at all. And I'd say one thing about Stack Overflow. So what Greg is doing I really like, but at Stack Overflow there was no chance of that being utilized. Very often we'll be speaking to software developers who are incredibly cold email sensitive. So no matter how much you would automatically personalize the note, if the note was not personal, you're going to get in a shitload of trouble, and that was a fireable offense because had the company's reputation on the line. So this idea of pumping out 50 emails a day was just, we could not entertain that idea at all. So that was kind of the starting point. So from there on, you cannot think of, scaling cold emails. Without going into too much detail, I'm a firm believer in actually taking the time and personalizing emails properly. And I have like a whole different presentation around that, which I thought I might do today, but I thought it could be controversial. So I'll leave it at this. But the approach is scalable, and it could be applied to what Greg is doing, I think.
So in terms of the product price that you are selling,
It's $3.99. It's free for individual salespeople. It's absolutely free.
All right, cool. Any more questions for Tim?
Yeah, is it hard to convince people to kind of switch their habits?
What do you mean? Because you're not really necessarily switching habits per se. Just can you be a little bit more specific?
So what I try to mean is like salespeople don't change that much. So they are not those guys who always try to do things differently. They just play by the book, and the book is usually old.
I'm not getting it, man.
I guess we
Sorry.
can have this discussion in a moment. We have
Okay.
one more coming from Roger.
One of the things about the burn down chart is it kind of creates a pessimistic image. Like I'm kind of curious, like what you're.
So are you asking why it's not a burn up? It's a personal choice. We have clients who basically use a burn up. You can switch it up if you want to. I'm a big fan of burn down. They track two slightly different things, right? One is basically amount of work remaining, which is why it's going down. The other one is accumulated work. So they're two very different things in a way. I don't know. I don't think that's the case. And a Stack Overflow, one of the things that we notice is that the burn down has like a tremendous gamification effect. Which is the only thing that I care about as a salesperson right now is to be below the line. That's all I give a shit about. I don't care about commission. I don't care about anything else. I want my line, my actual performance, to be below the model. Maybe to Greg's point, it's a bit habitual when you have to kind of build up the habit and maybe kind of get your cogs to kind of comprehend what is going on. Why is this graph going down? But it's a heuristic approach. That's what it is.
All right, one more.
Do you believe by choosing your agile model that you also think about agile ways of selling, right? So looking at the agile manifesto, like trust, self-control, and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Does that go with your thinking and your
Yeah. That's where, so to Greg's point, if I understood the question, which I'm not sure it did, but that's where, you kind of start changing how the team runs and what actually happens in terms of management meetings. So I didn't have time to go into this, but basically this is just the foundation of basically enabling the team to perform in more sort of independent fashion, sort of decoupled from management without the usual Monday sales all hands meeting.
That was my question.
Yeah. Okay, I get it now. Okay, so I don't think you can force people to do it, but one thing that I've seen is that if you basically have the right infrastructure in place, it kind of starts occurring automatically in a way. But to your point, that's something that we very much encourage, and it's something that we did at Stack Overflow because we don't believe as our business or Stack's business has evolved, the playbook, the so-called playbook has had to change as well, and being able to kind of keep things iterative and constantly evolving has been a blessing. And this has certainly helped a lot.
All right. Any more? No? Thank you very much, Tim.
Thanks guys.